What's going on, everyone? So, the Chris Paul and Keldon Johnson jersey debacle, the drama that ensued, appears to have came to an end. So, Spurs Report, at Spurs Reporter, originally reported, not officially confirmed, but I'm hearing from different people that Keldon Johnson will be giving up number 3 to Chris Paul. Johnson will be wearing number 0. Again, take it for what it's worth. Nothing official has been announced. And then followed that up with kidding aside, and just so all the haters and doubters can shut their traps, one of the sources told me that Chris Paul will wear number 3 because Pop pulled Keldon aside and told him giving it up was the right thing to do. I believe the source 100%. Now, for those that are like, who is this? Because I don't really know who Spurs Reporter is either. But this was the original source. We also have another in Mark Burnett. Now, this is more trusted. He also reported that Chris Paul will wear number 3 for the Spurs. Keldon Johnson will now wear number 0. So for those that are like, who is that person? Well, now you got multiple sources that are coming out and saying that, hey, this is the case. Chris Paul will be wearing number 3. Keldon Johnson will be wearing number 0. So, quick summary for those that are like, what? Like, what jersey debacle? Well, Chris Paul, CP3, has always been CP3, but Keldon Johnson was number 3. So there was a lot of questions of, hey, is Keldon Johnson going to give Chris Paul his number, right? Russell Westbrook, we just saw. Christian Brown decided that he's going to keep the number. Russell Westbrook said, there was a lot of talk and drama and controversy. Christian Brown, he's disrespectful, he's this, that, and the other. And Russell Westbrook came to his defense and said, hey, no, I told him I didn't want it. We didn't even talk about it. I'm good. Life's good. I wanted a new number because this is a new chapter in my career. Cool. Okay. That's fair. That's fine, right? Well, it's very reminiscent to the Keldon Johnson thing. Well, Keldon Johnson said, radio show, he said that he will be wearing number 3, that he's keeping number 3. He's not giving it to Chris Paul. And so that caused a little stir, right? It was a lot of people were like, man, wait a minute. Chris Paul really going to change his number? Because here's a big thing. Chris Paul could have went to the Miami Heat and had multiple championships by now, but he refused to give up number 3, right? Because Dwayne Wade wore number 3. I mean, Dwayne Wade and Chris Paul talked about this, shared the story, right? And it was Chris's brother, if I'm not mistaken, that pointed out, hey, who's going to wear number 3? And they both were like, we were. And there was even a running joke afterwards where they everybody was like, Chris Paul would have a reign right now if he would have just given up number 3. So if he wasn't willing to give up number 3 for Dwayne Wade, he ain't giving up number 3 for Keldon Johnson. So it was just this weird thing. But, it was all right, maybe, Chris Paul maybe doesn't want to rock the boat or anything like that. Maybe it's just one of those things. But apparently it took Greg Popovich pulling Keldon Johnson aside and saying hey, look, you got to give up number 3. It's what's got to happen. You got to pay your dues. You got to have respect, Chris Paul. Some people might not like that. Some people might. But a couple things. One, Keldon Johnson is probably getting traded at some point anyway. And if Keldon Johnson didn't give up number 3, Popovich probably would have shipped him out. Look, Greg Popovich is notorious for hey, if you're not going to listen, you're not going to be a team player, and you're not going to do essentially what I tell you, I'll just ship you out of here. Right? I mean, he's done it numerous times. Both star players, non-star players, in-between players. So, again, Keldon Johnson isn't safe. But also Keldon Johnson, he's just been in trade rumors all offseason. The Spurs have been heavily trying to trade Keldon Johnson based on reports coming out of the Spurs side. So, again, Pop might be looking at it as I'm getting rid of you anyway at some point. I mean, I'm sure he didn't tell him this, but he's probably looking at it as I'm going to get rid of you at some point anyway. So, I mean, you're going to give up number 3 one way or another. And instead of Chris Paul, having to wait the year, give it to him now. And then when I trade you by the trade deadline, you're good, right? Because also Keldon Johnson's kind of just the odd man out, right? I get he's great as that vacuum scorer, that bucket getter off the bench. Also, his flaws aren't as big and highlighted when he's coming off the bench as opposed to starting. But again, it's is he going to get the shot attempts? Is he going to really get the opportunity? Because not only do you have, of course, Wemby, but you now have Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes, Devin Vassell. You have Stephon Castle, who he probably is coming off the bench, if I had to guess, right? And so you're probably going to want him to get the shot attempts and him to get the opportunity. I'm not saying Keldon Johnson's not going to get any shot attempts, but I don't know if he's going to be if he's going to be getting 12 to 15 attempts per game. I don't think that's probably the case. So it's just, again, it's a tough spot for Keldon Johnson to be in, tough spot for the Spurs to be in, right? And they do have a couple needs, particularly like that power forward spot would be nice. It'd be nice to get another like 3-and-D wing. Get another like 6'8", 6'9", 3-and-D wing type guy to slot alongside Victor. So you have like, Harrison Barnes as a 3-and-D wing along with another 3-and-D wing, and then Victor Wembanyama, who can basically protect the rim as well as even step out on the perimeter if need be. And then, you have Devin Vassell and Chris Paul out there at the 2, right? I don't hate it, but Keldon Johnson, again, one way or another, he's probably going to be shipped out. One way or another, he's probably going to be on his way out. I'll be shocked if he's there this time next year. I mean, will they be able to trade him by the trade deadline? I don't know. We'll see. But I don't think he's in the Spurs' future plans. I don't think Keldon Johnson necessarily even wants to really be a Spur. And this might be another kind of thing. It's like, if you're Keldon Johnson, it's like, man, not only are you trying to trade me, not only are you like, I'm the odd man out. I've been moved to the bench, right? Now I have to give up my number. Right? You start going down the list. It's like, if you're Keldon Johnson, are you super thrilled? Are you super happy? You just went on a radio show and just told the world that, you're keeping number 3 and Chris Paul can basically kick rocks. And now it's like you're being forced to give up your number. Right. And I mean, look, hopefully, Chris Paul did the right thing too. Hopefully Chris Paul, paying him because usually that's what you do, right? Usually, you get the guy a car or a watch or something like that, or throw him some bread and just say, hey, thanks you buy the jersey, right? So I hope Chris Paul at least did that. I hope Chris Paul at least gave him the courtesy to like, hey man, I know you didn't want to do it. I know you wanted to keep the number. I know you didn't want to give it up. So, hey, here's whatever. Here's 100K, whatever, right? 300K because number 3, whatever, right? But also from Chris Paul's perspective, he could still be CP3 because that was one of the big things that I talked about, right? When I covered this news that came out, right? It was just like, it's not even so much, the jersey. I'm sure Chris Paul probably wouldn't care that much, but his entire name and brand is around that number. And that's a thing for just professional athletes, period. I mean, not just obviously basketball is a big thing, right? CP3, PG-13, right? Like, you have a lot of guys, like even, AR-15, right? Like, there've been players, Michael Jordan, 23, right? Like, Kobe, 8 and 24. And then, even football, you got, like TB12, Tom Brady 12, right? Dwayne Wade 3, right? Like, you have so many players just associated to their numbers. And a lot of them, their brand, their shoes, all their different, business ventures are all tied to their number, right? So it's not as, for a lot of these guys, like guys like Chris Paul, it's not just a number. It's his entire identity, business, all of it, right? So he's probably like, dude, I need that number. Like, you got to get off of that, right? Like, sorry, hate to break it to you type thing, but we'll see. Hopefully this doesn't, rock the boat or cause any stir. I don't think it will, but you never know. You'd be surprised what can kind of seem so light and innocent, and all of a sudden it becomes kind of a big deal. And it's like, oh snap! Like, we didn't expect that. Keldon Johnson's out the door. Chris Paul and him are, having an argument over a number, right? Some things that just seem silly don't always turn out to be that way. Sometimes those are the things that it's like, oh, okay. And even Greg Popovich, again, he's looking to trade him. Does this kind of motivate Pop to trade him even more now? Because he's looking at it as like, okay, like you're one of the, you can't even give Chris Paul the courtesy to, give up your number, right? That's why you're on the bench. That's why you're getting traded. That's why you out. Because there's a lot of talk about Keldon Johnson and his selfishness. A lot of talk about Keldon Johnson, throwing little fits and, just not being a team guy. And it's just like Chris Paul comes, he's so important, he's impactful not only for the on-court stuff, but the off-court stuff. He's a legend, all-time great Hall of Famer. Like you can't give him your jersey number, right? Like again, it's something that just seems very small and like it's just silly can kind of become a big thing. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Think this is a big nothing burger? Do you think this is something? What do you think of Pop kind of making Keldon Johnson have to give up the number? Again, how do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.